Hey there. It's great to see. I can see some of you. It's great to see you, and I appreciate the opportunity to chat. I'll give like Michael said, I'll give a quick State of the Union, and then I'm going to go through probably one or two questions apiece that have already been submitted, and then at the end, I'll look in the chat and see if there's anything that I haven't covered. So, in a general State of the Union, as I talk to you right now, we are literally. It could be any moment that we hear what the arbitrator's decision is. As I've talked about in a few videos, it's not a secret that Angel Studios and The Chosen have had a disagreement in their interpretation of the contract that we had from a couple years ago, and we've needed a third party. We've tried to do it privately. We consider it kind of a biblical mandate, especially on our end, to try to do this not out in public and to try to solve these matters as privately as possible. And what we're waiting on is a decision from the arbitrator as to the exact, like as soon as we get the decision, we will launch the season, probably that the first Sunday after we get the decision. I will make an announcement on our social media pages. We'll do a press release, and that will give the exact date that it's being released. We are going to be releasing it twice a week, so it'll be a shortened window compared to previous seasons. So we'll be releasing it on Sundays and Thursdays, and it'll start that first Sunday. Episode 1 will be on the first Sunday after we get the arbitrator's decision. The decision that's being made is, again, about our long-term path and our long-term partnership with, or lack thereof, with Angel Studios. So we're not going to get into the details, certainly not now. Our hope is that when the arbitrator gives his decision, that we'll be able to make an announcement that is modest and graceful. We are not, contrary to some comments in social media pages, this isn't about greed. It's not about control or fame or anything like that from either side. It's literally trying to find for The Chosen to find a sustainable path forward, because less than 5% of the people who watch the show pay for it. And the model that had originally originated with Angel Studios, the pay it forward model, just wasn't sustainable. And there's also just been some contractual disputes. So that has been what's been kind of consuming us for the last few months. And literally, it could be today, it could be tomorrow. We know it won't be longer than a week and a half from now that we find out exactly what our path is moving forward. So I'm also just returned from Utah. The first 26 days of filming were in Utah. We had 600 extras every day for 3 weeks. And we were able to film some of the most famous moments in Scripture. Season 5 covers Holy Week. And Holy Week includes the triumphal entry. It includes Jesus turning over the tables. It includes Jesus arguing with Pharisees in the temple. And of course, we're also exploring what Holy Week meant for the disciples and the followers and enemies of Jesus in real time. We have the benefit of looking back on Holy Week, and we see the moves. We see how it started with all this triumph, and by the end of it, everyone had turned. There's something really exciting and awful about showing that transition. And as we, I think, pride ourselves on, we like to take our time. We don't just go from Bible verse to Bible verse, incident to incident. We show the in-between. We show Jesus and the disciples, or at least we show the disciples working this out in their heads and not being able to comprehend what we're able to comprehend today. And it's been a really impactful first several weeks of filming. Multiple times. We had hundreds of extras, and after the scene was completed, coming up to me with tears in their eyes, having a first row seat to some exciting moments and some painful moments. And it's really shaping up to be our most impactful season yet. So hopefully the rest of the filming will be the same. We've got 2/3 of our filming left. And that's going to be here in Texas. So I'm talking to you right now from Texas. So that's kind of the State of the Union. I'm going to go through these questions here. This is from Christian Headlines. How, if at all, do you think The Chosen has influenced the perception of Christianity in American society? Is that one of your goals? Interestingly enough, I don't necessarily have a goal when I am making the show other than honoring God and being faithful to the spirit and intention of Jesus and the Gospels. Now, that said, we have seen over the last couple of years the awareness of the story of Jesus has increased significantly. We have seen a changes through surveys and through anecdotal evidence of people whose perception and understanding of the Jesus story has changed. And we would consider that to be in better ways. And the two ways that we've seen that has been among Christians and among even those who maybe are on the fence, seeing Jesus taken down from statues and stained glass windows and seeing that him as a human being and yes, God, but seeing the portrayal of Jesus as someone who laughs with his friends and who loved even the least of these, a Jesus who we believe is faithful to the scriptures, who is not only divine and capable of miracles and capable of and responsible for salvation, but also someone who dresses his own wounds and laughs with his friends and does a miracle as a favor to his mom. That's something that we have seen people over and over and over saying, the Bible is coming to life for me in a way that it hasn't before. And we consider that good news. It would be bad news if we were hearing people say, I no longer have to read the Bible because I have the show. We have not heard anyone say that, which has been great. Now, specifically to the question of the perception of Christianity, I do believe that Christianity has been weaponized by both sides of the political divide. Sometimes you see people on the conservative side use Christianity to justify justice and law and order, and perhaps a judgmental side. We've seen people on the other side use Christianity or use the Bible, use the Jesus story to justify, government social programs that perhaps Jesus didn't necessarily intend to be through the means of government. We don't know. Point is, we have seen things shift, and particularly in the area of the Jewishness of Jesus, we're also seeing Jewish-Christian relations improve. We're seeing that happen in the country of Israel, where the show is growing rapidly because of our emphasis on the Jewishness of Jesus, even if they don't believe that he was the Messiah. So I know that's a long answer to the question, but it's not something that we consider to be a goal, but it's something that we consider to be something that has been a wonderful value add to the show. Deseret News asks, what's your favorite behind-the-scenes moment from filming season 5 so far? I would say the filming of the triumphal entry was one of the most impactful and emotional moments of my entire career. Several of the disciples, the actors who played the disciples, the first time that they walked into Jerusalem with 600 people who truly believe in this and truly love Jesus and truly want to worship, getting a chance to worship a portrayal. We know that Jonathan is not actually Jesus, but to be able to recreate this extraordinary moment of probably the most famous worshipful moment in history was humbling. Several of the disciples were crying, seeing all these people chanting and singing and waving palm branches out in the middle of Utah, seeing the mountains and this recreation of first century Jerusalem. I've never experienced anything like it, and everyone who was there was changed and impacted. And in fact, one of the extras who had been brought there by her niece, and her aunt was there, and she came up to me and she said, my aunt just gave her life to Christ. I dragged her here to be part of this, and at the end of the day, she was forever changed. So it's that for sure is something we'll always remember. The direct says, if season 4 streams on the Chosen app first, when will new episodes arrive on other streaming platforms such as Amazon Prime and Peacock? So as we know, currently seasons 1 through 3 are on Prime and Hulu, which comes through Disney Plus, and Peacock season 1 is on Netflix in America. First couple seasons are on Netflix in some other countries. We anticipate that happening. We don't know if it's going to be a 60-day window or a 90-day window after season 4 launches on the Chosen app. So it's going to be on the Chosen app first, but we are also in discussions about potentially an exclusive relationship with a streamer that where it could potentially be available, future seasons available solely in not only in the Chosen app, but in that other streaming platform after that first window, or potentially in their own first window. So we don't know yet. Those discussions are happening now, but we know that season 4 will be coming soon, probably within 60 to 90 days after it releases in the Chosen app. There's another question from the direct that I liked. Apart from Jesus, which character season 5 storyline are you most interested in audiences seeing? I will have to admit that seeing Judas, again, this hopefully isn't a spoiler for too many people because they've read the Bible. But what is a spoiler is how it happens and who it impacts and how the disciples wrestle with knowing that something bad is happening. Jesus outright told the disciples, one of you will betray me. They didn't have a hallway for it. They couldn't understand it. They couldn't figure out who it might be. So why is that? Why couldn't they figure out that it was Judas? I love exploring that. How did this impact Judas? How did it impact, Judas, we know probably had a family. We also know that the socio-political dynamics were at play. So who is it that Judas first approached specifically? The Romans, the religious leaders. How did this all happen, and how did it happen underground? How did it happen without the disciples knowing? The portrayal of that in season 5 is really exciting and heartbreaking. And we've already filmed a couple of scenes that were really heartbreaking and tough to film and are going to be tough to watch. And they impacted Luke Dimian, who's playing Judas, significantly. And how we portray Jesus, scenes between Jesus and Judas, when Jesus knows what's coming, that's been really fascinating to portray. Let's see here. The question we saw that you worked from Movie Guide. Hi, Movie Guide. I saw that you worked with a lot of extras while filming season 3, many of whom I assume are fans of the show. What was it like working with chosen fans around the world? I already talked about the impact of shooting the triumphal entry, but honestly, the fuel that keeps us going is the reaction that people are having to it. This is a really hard show. It's an exhausting show. The weight of it is immense. As the show expands around the world, I'm doing my best to not focus on the fact that now over 100 million people are watching it and that it's being translated into dozens and dozens of languages, and that we're hearing from people in other countries telling us that the show is changing their lives. And that doesn't change how we do the show, but it is significant and it is hard and it is a weight, and it's a tremendous weight on my family. And we've experienced a lot of just sacrifice from the time that it takes, the energy that it requires. It's a more than full-time job. But when we're on set and people are dressed in first century gear and they're coming up to me and they're grabbing my hand and telling me through tears, my life has changed. My relationship with my father has changed. I came to Christ because of this show, or I'm reading the Bible more than ever because of this show. Or Dallas, you are changing lives. Thank you. I just want to say thank you. And they're willing to sit and stand in the heat for 12 hours a day, just because they want to be part of it. That fuels us for sure. And so that has been an extraordinary part of the process of this show, is that there is this feedback loop constantly that keeps us going. And it's really been beautiful. Church Leaders and Outreach asks, can you share how you've seen the impact The Chosen has had on the non-Christians that work on the filming of the show? Of course, I don't give names, but I can't tell you how many people on the crew and cast, because the majority of our crew and cast are not believers, or at least weren't when the show started, or at least aren't maybe traditional evangelicals. So many of them will come to me and just say, my faith has been restored because of working on this show, or I'm asking questions that I've never asked, or I can't tell you how much how much it means to me that I get a chance to work on this show. And yes, there have been a couple of members of the cast and a couple of members of the crew who have given their life to Christ because of it. But more than anything else, it's just a difference in understanding. I get a chance to explain the Gospels and explain these stories to people every single day. And that is for sure having an impact. And we also get a chance to see, I've shared this with a few of you, every time we do a scene where someone is quoting scripture, or someone is being called to follow Jesus, their character is being called to follow Jesus, something extra happens that they can't always explain. And I think I know the source of it, but there is something special that happens where there's just a stronger emotional response. And sometimes they'll even say, man, I can't get through this scene without crying. I do think God has something important to say. And I think that he's brought this specific cast and this specific crew to this show for a reason. And my wife, Amanda, and I do consider the our job and our, what happens on set to be our primary focus and our primary ministry. And what happens with the content outside the show is really up to God. So CrossMap asks, could you walk us through exactly what has happened to this point regarding the season 4 streaming launch? If there is no current timetable for release, could you suggest other venues where people can watch season 4? So I think I answered some of this in my State of the Union. Look, when we first approached and launched the arbitration process we first launched it in the fall, and then we weren't able to actually get into the arbitration court. I mean, it was a conference room until a couple months ago. But we were really wanting it to be as fast as possible, and everyone wants to get season 4 out as fast as possible. But of course, we just have to wait for the ruling before we can officially launch season 4. So I think I've given that in the update. As of right now, the first 4 episodes are available to churches and prisons. I think there's something actually really cool about that either if you're a churchgoer or a prisoner, or someone who's willing to go to a church or visit perhaps a prison, you can see the first 4 episodes of season 4 right now. There have been churches around the country that have taken us up on that. But I'm happy to say that we are closer and closer to the actual release. And so we will do a live stream on the first Sunday after we get the decision. It could be coming at any second. Pathio says, what surprised you about creating and sustaining a TV show and what hasn't? So the most surprising thing for me, at least when it comes to doing this particular show, has been the reaction from children. I didn't expect children to get this show. I didn't expect, much less love the show. When I hear from like a 7-year-old who says, I love the show and I watch it every day, and they're wearing a t-shirt, or I hear from parents saying, we've had trouble getting our kids to read the Bible until The Chosen came along. And now they watch The Chosen, and now they're excited to read the Bible stories. That has been an extraordinarily exciting thing to see. And then at the same time, I'll be on set and I see an 85-year-old woman who's trying to get through the day standing for 12 hours in the Utah heat, and she's doing her best. And I'm like, this is a tough, challenging, nuanced show to watch. This isn't, and I'm not even saying this in a snarky way, this isn't a Hallmark Channel show. And my mother-in-law, who typically would love to watch Hallmark Channel movies, is a big fan of this show. And not just because she's my mother-in-law, she's watched every episode. And that usually means that God has something to say. And it gets past maybe some of the artistic barriers that some people have to a show like this. That's gritty and raw and challenging, and especially season 4. I mean, season 4 is a tough season, and there's some things that we do in season 4 that haven't been done before in our show, and yet people who saw it in theaters from all ages were there for it, and they've been able to say, I'm in this, and let's do this together, and we're going to try to experience as close as we can to what Jesus and the disciples actually experienced, and that's been really exciting. And the thing that I think what hasn't been surprising has just been the fact that whether you're doing a movie or a TV show, or whether you are doing a Jesus show or doing the movie that I just filmed over the summer, over Christmas, which was the best Christmas pageant ever, the feature film that I got a chance to do. I was reminded of the fact that, man, filmmaking is still filmmaking. And whether there's 100 million people watching, or whether this is about Jesus of Nazareth, or in the case of my movie, which is set in modern times, about people trying to put on a pageant about the birth of Christ, it's set in modern times. It's still the same. It's still 12 hours of trying to tell this story accurately and trying to honor God with my loaves and fish. And I'm still, it's still actors and a director and a crew, 12 hours a day, plugging away. CrossMap asks also, okay, great. The Chosen was on the forefront of a renaissance of excellent faith-based content. Why is faith-based content much better than it was 2 decades ago? I think that at some point, permission was granted to Christian parents for their kids to pursue filmmaking as a worthy enterprise. When I was growing up, the only time you'd ever see the church engage with Hollywood, it was in the form of a boycott. There was resistance. There was hesitation, nervousness, skepticism. And at some point, something shifted. And I think maybe it was with the Passion of the Christ or something around that time. It was like, okay, maybe stories can be told, and maybe it's a worthwhile enterprise to go to college and to go to film school and to get and to pursue this as an occupation and potentially as a ministry. And parents started being okay with that and encouraging their kids to do this. And it was happening in the music industry. The music industry in the faith-based world was a little behind the rest of the world, but it was ahead of the film world. And so I do think you're starting to see things shift. And I think now Hollywood is more open to it. And again, I'm thinking about the fact that, on one hand, my Jesus show is done independently, but now, I mean, I'm getting, there's going to be an article about me in the Hollywood Reporter, a front page, full color article in the Hollywood Reporter about the creator of a Jesus show. That's the kind of thing that you wouldn't have expected 10 years ago, 5 years ago. I think that at some point you just focus on, we're going to make the best stuff we can and until they can't deny it. And I think slowly but surely that's been changing. And I know that the movie that I just made, Best Christmas Pageant Ever, I mean, the story of the Nativity is told explicitly, and the story of a church that sees Jesus in the correct way and has grown to love the least of these, and the gospel is presented. And Lionsgate has, put up $15 million for the production, is going to put up more for the marketing, and it's going to be in theaters in all over the country. Somehow, some way, finally, some of these walls have broken down, and I think we're starting to see what hopefully is a renaissance. I didn't set out to be part of that. I just set out to try to make the best story that I could. One more here before I look in the chat, if there has been any questions in the chat. Are there any characters this season that we will take more of a deep dive into? That's from Bravely Daily. And they also asked, does the Chosen plan to end at the ascension of Jesus or continue on to the stories of Pentecost and beyond? So season 4, we definitely explore a few characters more deeply. Gaius, Thomas, Rama. We start to explore Judas a little bit more. Lazarus. Of course, these are characters that we've introduced in previous seasons, but we really dive deeper into their characters, and you start to see the stories in the Bible. We know that Thomas doubted. We know that Lazarus was raised and then ultimately had to kind of go into hiding because his life was in danger. We know that there was a centurion in the Gospels who believed that Jesus could heal his son. Well, we've introduced these characters in previous seasons, and now we get a chance to see maybe why they got to where they are. And so season 4 really explores that. And then season 5, which we're filming now, really sets up the events of the crucifixion and the resurrection. And as this question asks, are we going to continue? Now, I will say that season 7, the final season, will end with the beginning, right? It ends, at the end of Jesus's ministry, which is a launch of the ministry of the disciples. We're not going to go very far in the book of Acts at the end of season 7, but I would absolutely love and am hopeful that I can continue telling the story of the birth of the church and the greatest movement in history. So, but right now, I'm just focused on season 5. And I think hopefully, if you're a fan of the show, you want me to be focused on season 5. So I'm looking in the chat here. Let me just, I'm going to try to get through as many of these as I can. Brittany, hello, Brittany. Does the Chosen plan to end at, okay, so I asked that question. Kim Sorrelle, hi there, Kim. What are other fun secret things that go beyond the scenes like the Bible verses on the walls? Okay, so she's referring to the fact that on the set of The Chosen, as the set was being built, a lot of the people in the construction of the set were strong believers, and so they started writing verses on the drywall. And so in the fabric of the set, all over the set here in Texas, God's word is written. And so I think you're asking, are there any other things like that? I don't think there's a ton more than that. I will just tell you that just from a personal standpoint, we every day is prayed over by a multitude of people who care about not only the impact of this show, but the people who are making it. I can also tell you that during the filming of the 3 weeks that there were 600 Chosen fans there. Some of them were there all 3 weeks, and they took turns literally reading the Bible And so I don't know exactly how much of the entire Bible they covered, but the Bible was being read literally every moment for 3 weeks on the set. I can also tell you, like I said, on a personal level, every morning, I try to get away by myself, and I just want readers or viewers to know that the person who's responsible for the creation of this show, artistically, that I still am every single day trying to remind myself that God is in control of this, that I'm surrendered to this process, that it doesn't matter how many people are watching, that I'm not doing this to gain praise or avoid criticism. And so, whether or not there's stories written that are praising the show or criticizing the show, it really doesn't matter. My focus remains to this day on honoring God and being humbled and surrendered. And that's true of the actors as well. Kate O'Hare. Hey, Kate. Always good to hear from you. Has your success made it impossible for the mainstream entertainment press to not cover The Chosen and other Christian entertainment? So again, I think I addressed that a little bit with like mentioning the Hollywood Reporter. They're still slow. The industry trades are a little bit quicker because to them they're seeing something that's clearly growing in their space, and so they're interested in that. But we saw CBS Sunday Morning did a feature on us. They've always been a little bit more friendly to stories like this. I honestly don't care. I mean, it's really not up to me, but we are seeing slowly but surely more and more people embrace this. Just this morning, I woke up and I had a bunch of texts from people showing me that Gwen Stefani and Blake Shelton were tweeting about how obsessed they are with the show and how they can't wait for season 4. Even things like that. They're not journalists, but when the Kardashians and Gwen Stefani and Blake Shelton are tweeting about how much they love the show, at some point it becomes undeniable. And at some point, whether you're a mainstream or a faith-based journalist, you can't deny what's growing. But that's not really my responsibility. And no matter what happens, I'm always going to love talking to you first because you were there before we were cool. And I know this is a very personal and passionate thing for you and your readers and viewers. And I always have a deep appreciation and respect for that.
Hey, Dallas, I think
yeah.
I don't want to interrupt, but I think we have around 2 more minutes with you before you've got to go keep making The Chosen.
Yes. Tonight, it's not just making The Chosen, it's making sure that my wife and I continue to have a happy marriage. So, because today is one of my days off. Let's see. With this, let me see here. Paul, hey Paul, good to see you. With the success of the show inspiring others, what has been the overall feeling you have been getting from choosing to make something special that could make a difference? I think I've talked a little bit about that. I mean, that is the fuel. The impact of the show on the viewers is ultimately the fuel that keeps us going. And the stories that we hear of people's lives being changed never get old, and I pray that they never do. Carly asks, hey Carly, both seasons 3 and 4 had pretty big spoiler and surprise moments. Will there be one in season 5? Yes. And Holly, hey Holly and I go way back. Hi Dallas, are you planning on expanding your Midlothian set to continue the storyline into season 7 and maybe after? Yes. So we've already done some building in our set here in Midlothian that expands just out of Capernaum, which is because our set is mostly covers Capernaum, but we now because the Utah set doesn't have everything that we need, and so we built a few new things here on the set in Midlothian. And I'm telling you, I cannot wait. I hope you guys get to visit. I don't know when you're visiting, but we'll show you a couple of the sets that we're doing on the stage that are, oh man, they're unbelievable. I've already been blown away. And so we've got some stage sets that we're building that are going to help us not only in this season, but in season 6 and 7. And then, yes, hopefully we will get to do more things beyond just this show, and that we will use this set for more than just the period of the Gospels. I can promise you that here's what I can promise, that we intend to, but we as of this moment, we don't know. We really try to focus on one day at a time. I know it sounds like a cliche, but it is true. We're trying not to get ahead of ourselves or get ahead of God. God directs our steps. And if in 5 years I'm doing another press conference like this with you folks, who I appreciate so deeply, and I hope, I really do hope that we're talking about another Bible show. And we'll get there someday. So thank you so much for your time. And I appreciate each and every one of you. and we'll talk soon, and hopefully I'll see some of you here on set.